welcome to our weekly Tuesday webinar. I'm Yomika Bennett, Executive Director of the New York Charter Schools Association. I'm joined today by Susie Carello, Executive Director of the SUNY Charter Schools Institute, David Frank, Executive Director of the Charter Schools Office at NYSID, Jen Shulman at New York City Department of Education, and Randall Eiserman from the New York City Charter Center. We'll have a few updates from the association before we turn it over to David, Susie, and Lori. And Jen, I apologize for that, for their updates, and then turn to questions. First, we are very excited for next week's statewide virtual conference. The schedule has been released, and we encourage you to check it out. A silver lining of the current context in hosting the conference virtually is that there's a whole wide variety of content, for lots of different staff, as well as charter parents and alumni. We're dropping a link in the chat to check out the schedule, which will also have a link to register. You can check out some of the conference presenter previews on social media. We have special guests providing keynote addresses and, of course, 8 Black Hands. The virtual conference is planned so that you, your schools, your parents, or alumni can come together and take the entire charter community to the next level. If you haven't registered, please do so. If you haven't shared the information with your parents and alumni, please do that as well. Including other stakeholders as well as board members. I don't want to forget them. Share far and wide, and we hope to have a great conference this year. And don't forget, there are prizes for PPE and other contests. So I look forward to seeing you October 21st to the 23rd at the virtual conference. This Thursday, which is the day after tomorrow, the 15th at 5 p.m., please make time to join a special conversation in the Race, Justice, and Equity series on community, urban youth, and gun violence with University Preparatory Charter School for Young Men. UPrep has lost 2 students this summer to gun violence, and UPrep's Dr. Walter Larkin and his team will facilitate a discussion with students, faculty, and staff, and community members who have been directly impacted by gun violence. Please join this important conversation, as I said, Thursday, October 15th at 5 p.m. It will be available on Facebook Live. We will drop a link in the chat so you can find that. Please join us. Do not miss this important conversation this Thursday. We know that there are a lot of questions about the color coding system for areas of the state and their implications for charter schools, which is now this color coding system, which is now being called the Cluster Action Initiative. The yellow, red zones, orange zones, for those of you who are dealing with this day to day right now. You can read more about the initiative overall at the link we're dropping in the chat, and you can look up specific addresses to see if they fall into a particular color category at the another link that we're dropping in the chat. So you see, again, 2 links, one that will talk about the overall program and the initiative, and you can see what's going on there, and the other is to find out whether or not your specific school falls into the color category. We received lots of questions about COVID testing for schools in the yellow zone, and the diligent folks at New York City DOE, thank you, Jen, thank you to Angeli and Lori who aren't able to join us today, are working hard to get more clarity on this. In the meantime, you can email schoolquestionscovid@health.ny.gov. We dropped that in the chat, but for anybody who's on the phone, schoolquestionscovid@health.ny.gov. If you have any questions about testing, please reach out, email there. In addition, one school recommended a source for finding your own testing, sourcing your own testing, and we're going to also drop that in the chat. So please check the chat out today. We have lots of helpful information. Again, we're dropping a resource for schools to find their own testing sources. As always, please let us know if resources like this would be helpful for us to access with the scale of the statewide charter sector, similar to our PPE purchasing. And again, any updates, questions, requests that you have for us, please always feel free to email us, reach out. With all those updates, Susie, Jen, and David, we're going to turn it over to you. We'll start with you, David.
I was caught a little off guard there. I hope everyone is doing well, and I think the conversations that Yomika was discussing show how much the pandemic continues to touch the lives of our schools and senseless violence as well. And so I'm glad that we're having these conversations. And And I look forward to hearing more both from our schools as well as from you at the State Association Conference. So I have a few things on the agenda for today. First, for Board of Regents authorized charter schools, benchmark 1 of your renewal application, benchmark 1 narrative rather, is due tomorrow, October 14th. So we look forward to reviewing those documents. In addition, we sent out additional guidance regarding the fiscal annual report and ESSA fiscal transparency reporting. So we sent that out via the charter school listserv. So if you didn't get it, one, make sure that your CEDREF information is up to date. We have information on how to update CEDREF on our website, or you could reach out to us to add you to the listserv. But basically, your audited financial report, management letters, and the audited financial report and any other required financial reports are still due to your authorizer on November 2nd. And for Board of Regents authorized, New York City DOE authorized, and Buffalo authorized charter schools, you'll submit those documents right through the SED portal. And we've, of course, been working very closely with our colleagues at SUNY, the incredible Barb Achenauer and Connor Leclerc and John Flack. And so SUNY authorized charter schools are submitting that information through their Epicenter submission task list. But reach out to your authorizer if you have any questions, or let me know if you didn't get that email. In addition, the ESSA fiscal transparency data reporting requirements are due on November 30th. That's a month later than originally planned, but we're making sure that the portal is up and running and that we're able to get guidance out. And the email talks about instructions for doing that as well. So if you do have any questions about submitting information, please do let us know. And it's really easy to submit the information I spoke about. You just sign it for Board of Regents, DOE and Buffalo schools. You just sign into the business portal. You go to My Applications, you click IRS Data Exchange, and then it's under Data Collections. You just click on the ESSA charter files. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you with that. In addition, we'll be having the Progress Towards Goals portal up very shortly within the next day or two, so you can submit information in the annual report regarding your progress towards goals. Again, you can email your authorizer if you have any questions about that. And lastly, I did want to talk a little bit about immunizations. So in guidance from the New York State Department of Health, they outlined that they expect to they will exercise discretion with the enforcement of provisions of the public health law, and that there will be a slight extension to when students need to have their immunizations. And so there was a deadline extension from October 12th to November 11th to submit proof of immunization. But in order for students to be in school without an immunization until November 11th, parents must submit an affidavit in a form and manner determined by the school stating their intent to immunize the child before the deadline. And I can send out information on this as well. Interestingly, in that guidance, there's actually the language is very stern, and it directs local health departments to assist schools that want to arrange vaccination clinics. And it says, and I quote, "If cooperation does not occur, the Commissioner of Health is authorized to step in and may recover the cost from the amounts of state aid owed to the local department." And so if you want to set up an immunization clinic, you should reach out to your local Department of Health. And Health Commissioner Zucker put this in writing and told local departments of health how seriously the state takes this. So you have a little more flexibility in terms of immunizations, and certainly hopefully some help from your local health departments around those initiatives. That being said, I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
All right, great, thank you. Hi, Susie. You have an update?
You know, David, I'm glad that you cite my team members. I never hear you cite yours. The one other thing is that there are some beds tasks that are in Epicenter, including all of the pieces that I know you're gathering from Beds Day. We've got 81 of you have reported in so far. We got about another 112 to go from our open enrollment schools. So just a gentle reminder on that. And that's all I've got.
All right, great. Thank you, Susie. Jen, do you have an update?
No updates from DOE today.
All right, great. All right, with that, Anna, I'll turn it over to you for Q&A.
I don't know how many Zooms I have to be on before there at some point I still don't leave myself on mute. Thank you, Yomika. All right, so diving in, the David ELL waivers. Here we go. So Amanda's asking, and I actually hadn't heard about this, a district level waiver. And so is this something that you're familiar with? Does it apply to charter schools? Everything that we had discussed in this forum so far had been about parents requesting a waiver for their specific student. Is the district level waiver a thing? Does it apply to charter schools? Thoughts? Nice to tell thoughts. Day 100.
SED issued guidance on this, and schools can refer back to their guidance. In addition, although the schools know my team very well, since I'm always referring people to them, and you can reach out to our Office of Bilingual Ed and World Languages if you have any questions, and the link is in the chat.
All right. So I would say, Amanda, in the meantime, the individual waiver language that we've discussed a bunch of times on these calls still stands. And so unless you were hoping that the district level waiver would sort of be one fell swoop, which my suspicion would be that it's not, because these are usually parents' rights to waive as opposed to a school's rights, I would continue to seek out the parent, the individual waiver as opposed to the district waiver. I'm just going to keep on trucking with the testing notice and waiver type questions, David, if you don't mind. Stacy's asking about the NAEP testing notice, which I'm actually not sure that I saw or could speak to.
Yeah, so the Vice Chancellor sent out a memo regarding testing, including NAEP testing. NAEP is actually, it's required by the federal government. So if anyone has a problem with NAEP testing, they should reach out to Secretary DeVoe. But the US Department of Education has stated that they do not intend right now to issue a waiver for NAEP testing. So schools are chosen by the US Department of Education for administration. Schools themselves cannot opt out. It's actually, you promise to administer NAEP if you accept Title I funds. However, students and parents can opt their child out individually. I would encourage you to read the Vice Chancellor's letter. I think it's quite well done. And it does talk about what we consider to be the requirements that need to be in place as a state before testing commences. And that includes NAEP testing. But ultimately, it's out of the state education department's control. Stacy, if you have any specific concerns or your school has been selected for NAEP testing, you can feel free to reach out to me, and we can brainstorm together.
So let me just make sure that I understand. The memo that you're referring to is the memo that was released that most people are thinking of in the context of state testing, essentially if state testing is going to happen, it has to happen in an equitable way, which means in person. And so if those conditions are met and you are selected, this is my Venn diagram of hands. If those conditions are met, which would be some future point in the school year, and your school has been selected by the federal government to administer NAEP testing, you must administer it. But if the conditions outlined by the commissioner are not met, even if you're selected for NAEP testing, you would not administer it. Am I understanding this correctly?
I didn't follow you 100%. Can you, absent a visual of your Venn diagram?
I know. That's just, yeah. This is not your master's degree Venn diagram here. So the conditions for testing that you're referencing that were in the commissioner's memo, which I think most people are thinking about that memo. Vice Chancellor, thank you. I think most people are thinking about that memo in the context of state tests, right? The sufficient conditions for state tests. You're saying those conditions apply to NAEP. And so if those conditions are true, that's my one Venn diagram circle, and you're selected to administer NAEP, then you would administer it. This is many months down the road in terms of the school year. But even if you're selected to administer NAEP, if SED does not determine that the conditions have been met for equitable administration of tests, which means being in person, then a school would not have to administer NAEP?
Unfortunately, while the Vice Chancellor's memo outlines our commitment to ensure safe administration of assessments, ultimately determination as to whether or not your school needs to administer the NAEP will rest with the U.S. Department of Education, not with the State Education Department. So we're working, and by we, I don't mean me, I mean our great assessment team led by Assistant Commissioner Katz is working to convey our concerns to the U.S. Department of Education, and we're working with our, we all belong, like your schools perhaps belong to the State Association. We belong to an organization called the Council of Chief State School Officers, and they're lobbying on our behalf to relay the concerns that that states like New York have with NAEP administration. But ultimately, it will be up to the U.S. Department of Education.
Is it helpful, as you all are doing that lobbying, to know who has been selected by hearing from schools?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Great. So
and there's
if you got the memo about giving NAEP testing, let David know. The longer the email with more of the sob story. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's true though.
But if you want to provide context about why it would be very complicated and challenging, you should, by all means, send that to David. And if you're not SED authorized, I believe I speak for Susie and Jen to say, make them aware as well. All right. Yomika, this might be coming to you because I know you've had some conversations with folks at the DOH about the reporting portal. So Claire is asking, is there a way to add historical data? Because they originally believed, which there was a period of time where we did as well, that it only applied to in-person offerings. Is there a way for them to submit or communicate historical data to that portal? And Claire, I'm assuming that there is a benefit to doing so. Although that would also be a question that I would have: is there some reason that schools, if they feel like their historical data is not present or not accurate in the portal, that there is a reason to do that? I may have just put Yomika on the spot with not insufficient warning.
Nope, That's me. Technical difficulty. I didn't unmute myself. I was talking away. It was a great answer. I have to figure out if I can repeat that. No. The best thing to do probably right now is to email the school questions covid@health.ny.gov. That is the New York State Department of Health. Except if you already have contact with someone at DOH who has been helping you or your school with any of the technical issues that you have. Other than that, I would reach out through that email and find out where to submit the historic information. The other is a question I would have for you, so maybe it'd be better to call me directly or email me directly as to whether or not you've received any information from the state saying you owe us data, you're not up to date. So those are something good to think about. But feel free to email me or give me a call, and we can talk a little bit further offline.
And then relatedly, Yomika, and I only say this because I know you were also in conversations earlier today on this topic from, and I apologize, Ashish, if I'm getting the pronunciation of your first name incorrect. So schools that are in the yellow zone of New York City, I know this is something that you mentioned at the top, in part because there's not great clarity for getting students tested and put in a call to the DOH, the New York City DOH, and the furthest that they got is that someone will call them back and just confirming, and again, this I think is what you said at the top, but just want to make sure that the best recourse at this point and sort of insurance, if you will, from a compliance perspective for a school is to document that and put it in an email to schoolquestionscovid@healthyny.gov, knowing that that's going to the DOH and not the DOE. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yes. So to put that in the send the email out, and it's also, and he made a good point about insurance to show that you've made a good faith effort in reaching out on this as much as you can. DOH, I talked to someone at New York City DOH today. They are basically still in their planning stages, figuring out how they're going to roll this out, what they're going to do, and as of today, has said that they will be reaching out to schools. So the information that you got about that DOH said they would call you back, that is their message at this point, that they are going to reach out to schools with the testing plans or whatever the plan is to comply with that. Compliance is supposed to begin according to the state memo that everyone has received Friday the 16th, so that's this Friday. And Jen may be able to talk more about this, but it's my understanding as well that New York City DOE is also working on what will happen in terms of rollout. So the best places to sort of keep up with are New York City DOH. Look out for those phone calls. Send that email out asking a question. Let them know you want information on testing, how your school can participate when you're in the yellow zone, and keeping up with what's happening with New York City DOE.
Yeah, and I would only just echo something that you just said, which is there's always benefit in a good CYA email, right? To whom it may concern, I am so-and-so from such and such school. I have been directed to reach out to this email address. I am notifying you that we are in this zone, and it's our understanding that you will do everything I want as soon as I want it. Dear, with love, your charter school friend, waiting for testing.
Absolutely.
All right, David, another question coming at you, this one about money instead of memos. Any update around when ESSER funds will be released and or the New York City supplemental appropriation, which thank you for your work to get in process, but any update on the process?
So regarding ESSA, I'll have to get back to you on that. Regarding the supplemental funds, it takes a good team to put that together. So certainly a lot of people worked on that, and that should have come or should be coming this week for schools. So if you don't receive it by the end of this week, just send me a quick email, david.frank@nisa.gov, and we'll look to see where those funds are.
Thank you. This one can be for all authorizers. Greg is asking about templates from the DOE or Department of Health for family communication letters in terms of infections, but I think that, or supposed suspected or confirmed cases of COVID. Apologize for my marble mouth. Do you all have any resources that you're recommending folks use? This is also, if you have or have seen good examples of this, we're happy to help be a resource to source them out. David, Susie, Jen, any, do you guys have templates? Do you have templates that you've seen that you would suggest people use?
The DOE is still working on securing the templates that have been used by the Situation Room and the schools that had cases routed through those. We don't have any updates yet, but hope to very soon.
I haven't, but I can keep my eye out for them.
Great, and I would say to the almost 200 of you all playing along at home, if you have a template and you feel really great about it, send it to us in an email and we're happy to help make it available to your charter brethren. Well, last non-New York City question, guidance for emergency drills if a school is remote. My understanding is that the emergency drill policy is only in effect if a school is in person. David, you're confirming that? Jen, agree?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Great.
But David,
Okay, so then,
can I interrupt you for 1 second, Anna, to do a follow-up on that?
please.
Then, David, we've been asked, will there be a change in the number that's required or the dates when they are required by if your school doesn't actually start school until, say, December 1?
Well, if you go back in person, then with ample time to secure to have those drills, they would be required. But that's a great question, Randall, and I'll have to check in with our facilities team to see what they say on it. But I don't have a definitive answer on that, but it's a good question.
Appreciate that.
Isn't it also, isn't there some, Randall, isn't there some parameter that's a number per month? I would assume it would just, that would just resume when a school is in person as opposed to a certain number, or is that what you're saying specifically?
Well, I can't speak for other districts, but here in the city, you have to have done at least 8 of them by the end of December. And if you haven't actually started school until after Thanksgiving or December 15th, there's really no way for you to meet that goal, that first goal. Then whether or not they'll roll those back into spring or simply lop off some of the fall numbers and reduce the total number is not clear to us. And actually, I didn't mean to set David up. I didn't think we really had an answer yet, but that was the way the question came to us just a little while ago, and I was going to ask it as well, whether or not there will be a change in the number or frequency and the timing of those things.
Yeah, that is a really good question, Randall. I don't have an answer, and I will reach out and I'll get you an answer so you can share it at our next call.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks, Anna.
Well, absolutely. Well, don't mute yourself. Let's keep this party rolling, because similar question about doing, and we might be entering the sort of Alice's Wonderland of bureaucracy here, but great question. Do we have to do the bus safety announcements if we are fully remote? We are being told yes.
So it's the same office that deals with the fire drills. So I will add that to the questions to ask.
And it just keeps on rolling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, so like in the world where you are watching videos at home, do you also need to train about bus evacuations and fire drills? So.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks Wendy, and I'll and Randall, I will reach out to our facilities team and ask them.
Appreciate that. And so maybe we're still sort of bridging some some topics here, and Randall, at any point, I'm happy to hand this over to you all the way. But Marlene's asking a great question about guidance on staff that come from hotspots. So if they are in a red zone and your school is not, and I think my understanding is that there is not explicit, like actual written guidance on this. And so David, Jen, Susie, Randall, Yomika, do you have guidance on this? What recommendations would you make for a school with staff that's coming from places that are red zones, even if their school is not in a red zone?
My understanding was that it follows the person, but they reach out to their local Department of Health to inquire.
And if the odds are low that your local Department of Health is going to get back to you, Yomika, were you?
I was going to say
pain of penalty to commit from Commissioner Zucker if they don't.
So I was just going to add that I would say that schools should follow their normal protocols, right? Whatever they have for staff coming in. If someone's coming in from a red zone and you have whatever enhanced reason to believe they may be sort of susceptible to COVID, follow whatever those protocols are. Otherwise, I have not seen anything that says you have to do or need to do something different with that staff or faculty member. They're not required to be remote, but I would say that would be up to the school to decide. There's nothing out there that I've seen in the official guidance.
I would second that, as Yomika just explained it, because, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but even in a red zone, they haven't actually asked all families to stay home. They've been shutting down businesses and gathering places. So it doesn't seem entirely fair to say that 3 kids going from a red zone to a yellow zone school should be barred from school just because of where they live.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what happens if you get on a subway and you get on in the subway on a green zone, and then you travel through a red, an orange, and a yellow zone, and then back into a red zone, and then back into a green zone.
The rainbow.
It's the rainbow of colors, and so that's why I think the advice is spot on. Follow your procedures, but I would contact your Department of Health. And then I think it was Anna before said CYA. You definitely want a CYA.
So based on that, if you don't mind, Anna,
Please.
We'll do a plug right now, Jen and I, because the question did actually come up and we were about to do a red, yellow, orange plug for the DOH, MH, DOE joint call on Friday. Jen.
Randall.
You got it? We are doing it, right?
Don't yet have the link, but it is coming. So we ask everyone to please block your calendars.
Our usual
popcorn,
time, 1 p.m. on
be
Friday.
ready, and we'll send the link out as soon as we can.
All right, great. Thank you for that. And with that, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks a lot, Anna. Thank you, Yomika and Authorizers. I am stepping in for Corey, who's taking a much deserved and needed few days to sort of get reacquainted with her boys after this summer. And I'm sure Angeli, as Anna said, is busily trying to get us more answers and more clarity on various things. So it's good to have you with us, Jen, today. Let me take another slightly easier question on this that has come in earlier. And that would be, can you tell us if work's been done by contractors on ventilation systems? Can schools get that report, and how do they get those updated reports?
So we're still working on that, Randall, and we'll circle back with more information as soon as we can.
Got it. I think I heard that before. We have already talked a little bit about the randomized testing. So why don't you give us the sort of headline on the red, orange, yellow zones and what we know so far.
So as we're all aware, the state has designated certain zones in Brooklyn and Queens and other parts of the state as well as red, orange, or yellow, depending on the levels of active cases in the area and the risks assessed, have issued maps detailing exactly where those areas are, and schools within the orange and red are operating remotely. This we all know. Randall, is there a specific question within?
Oh, I think we've actually addressed some of those questions already with
Yes.
what about kids crossing lines? Let me ask you one question. What, if any, kind of access will there be at all to schools in the red or orange zones, even by staff members?
School leaders and directors of operations will be able to access the buildings. We ask that you, but there shouldn't be any issues with access there. No other staff members or students should be in those buildings, in those zones at this time.
Okay, so we've actually essentially returned to the same kind of very low, very limited access that we had during the summer.
That is correct for the time being, until the zones have shifted and the warnings have been lifted.
Okay, and then the only other sort of recurring question that we've had from before, but I see also various aspects of it on today's Q&A. Can charters in co-located schools opt into the monthly random testing being run by the Department of Education per UFT negotiations? Do we know?
Program at this time, we have a long list of schools that have volunteered to participate, which we certainly appreciate. We're still working on the details to see how we can get charters involved, but there are no updates at this time.
All right. And as I understand it, there are no updates for schools in private space either, as far as what's going to be available to help them meet the mandated 20% random testing if they end up in a yellow zone.
Unfortunately,
Correct?
no, we have no updates on access to the citywide testing program
Okay.
or expedited testing available to, that are available to district teachers and staff members.
All right.
The
So,
citywide resources remain free and open to all.
all right. So we don't think that there's going to be any real change of that access for charter staff. Seems unlikely. Correct?
But, and I wish I had updates to share, but unfortunately we don't have any today.
All right. One more question in the chat at the moment. There is an email regarding open DOE feeding sites for remote learning. The question coming in is that parents need an email address. Parents need to have a New York City Department of Ed email address. Is that true in order to access that program?
I have not heard that. Everything I've heard says that it's open to
Everyone.
all parents.
That was my impression as well. So tell you what, Karen, what we'll do is we will double check on this access and get back to you after the call to see if we can follow up to make sure we're understanding the question correctly and that we've got the right answer for you.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I see here in the Q&A, can food service workers remain? I assume that means remain in their buildings.
Our understanding at this time is yes.
And of course,
But that I will confirm with our teams.
Appreciate it. And of course, there is still the question. It comes up all the time, and I don't know if you have yet any further clarity on it. Do charter families have access to the Learning Bridges program?
Still working on updates to to that question. More to come.
Thanks, Jen, for being the unlucky one that gets to keep telling us again and again that no, we still don't have an answer. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons that Angeli is not available right now. She's hard at work trying to get some of these things worked out for us.
She truly is.
I know
it's my
she
pleasure
is.
to be here with you.
We defend her all the time on this. It's like we know that they can't answer fast and it's taking a long time, but way out of our hands at this point. So one more question for clarification, and this might actually be not just for you, Jen, specifically, but I'll go ahead and ask it from Crystal. The random testing requirement for schools in the yellow zone, presumably only going to affect if students and staff are attending in-person schooling. That's a reasonable assumption, correct?
I think that is a reasonable assumption. That's one of the things we're working to confirm with Department of Health, and we'll share out updates as soon as we have more information.
Good. And that closes us out for New York City questions as far as we can see. So I hand it back to you, Anna and Yumika.
Right, great. Thanks, Randall. I think we're all wrapped up for the day. I just want to canvass the group before we wrap up to make sure that no one has any remaining comments, parting comments. I'm checking with David, Susie, Jen, Anna. All right, all good. Well, we hope that you will tune in again on Thursday for the Facebook Live Race, Justice, Equity series with UPrep with Mr. Walter Larkin. And until then, be well. We'll get you some answers on and keep you posted on what's going on with the color-coded school zones. In the meanwhile, be safe. Talk to you then. Good night.
Bye.